Hey folks, so today we're going to take a look at the different magazines that can possibly be running through a Marui. I have here the standard or the stock G26 mag that comes with a Marui gun. I have the WEG19 metal magazine right here. I have the very old but the original G17 metal magazine that if you buy a Glock from WE, it comes with this one. And then I have here the Stark Arms or VFC G17 metal magazine right here. This is going to be basically the same one that if you buy the up and coming Umarex Glocks, you'll be getting this one as well. So they're the same. And then finally, I have the plastic WE G17 magazine right here. We're going to try all of these and running through them, and we're going to fire and see how the FPS drops actually when you compare them. Now, they are a little bit slightly different. In the G17 I've had before, I've noticed that although they fit and fired, I was able to find out that they're just not as gas efficient and they drop a lot faster in terms of FPS. So let's see if it's the same with the G26. The reason I chose the G26 though is I can run through a lot more different magazines than I can with my G17. I can run the G19 and the G26 mags in addition to the G17 mags. And because of that, I can have a variety of different ones. I have Marui, I have WE, I have VFC, well, just those three really. I wish I had a KJW and maybe an HFCs. I heard those are possibly compatible, but I don't have those to work with. So I can do the best what I can with these. So let's give it a shot, and let's start with our... Oh, I forgot to mention, all these are loaded with duster gas. I've emptied all of them with green gas and loaded them with duster because I am running a Marui. And like I mentioned in my other reviews, the slide is indeed plastic. So we have to be careful about that. But since it is duster, it shouldn't be a big deal for Marui. Alrighty, let's get started. First up, let's start with the 10 round. There's 14 rounds here, but it's a 10 round style magazine that comes stock with the Marui. Alright, let's see here. .224, 224, 9 for some reason, 217, 216, 216, 216, 213, 215, 213, 211. It's holding pretty steady actually. 210, 209. Alright, 209 is the last shot we've got it on. So empty of 14 rounds roughly. There are a couple of flukes in there. I'm not sure how to explain those, but for the most part, it started about like around 220 and slowly made it way back down to 210. For the most part, those 14 shots seemed pretty stable. I thought this gun did a pretty good job. Let's try next the WE G19 magazine. All right, also 14 rounds. By the way, I chose 14 because that seemed to be the maximum amount I can really hold in this magazine is 14. I normally don't load it with that many. I usually load it with 10. I like to copy whatever the real one holds, just for the extra realism. But for this purpose, we want the more shots we get, the better picture we get. So that was 14, and all these fill 14 as well. Obviously, they can hold a little bit more, but to keep it consistent, let's just keep it as 14. So another 14 for the G19 WE metal magazine. Let's see here. As expected, sticks out a little bit, which is kind of cool, I think. Alrighty. Let's see here. It should be around 220 if it's correct. 232, a little high, but around the same ballpark. 234. Shoots a little higher actually. 231. 228. 227. 226. 224. 225. 224. 223. 224. 222. 220, and 220 again. So it looks like, honestly, this starting to see some difference here. It looks like the WE mag here releases gas a lot at a higher velocity than does the stock Tokyo Marui magazine. I have read somewhere that there's a difference in the gas valve between the Maruis and the WE, specifically for the Glock 17 series magazine. But I mean, they're really no different between whether you're looking at the G26 or the G17. So it looks like that's somewhat true actually, because this ended at 220, while this started at 220. So, but the rate of decline in terms of the FPS seems kind of comparable. We'll double check this in a little bit when we actually have the numbers crunched out and we take a look at the rate of decline in FPS to really be sure. This is just an eyeballing it from one of the shooting tests here. But so far, this speaks well to the G17 or the G19 WE magazine. Of course, every time you have higher FPS, you got to consider more wear and tear, but a little bit higher, maybe better options for your colder days, perhaps. All right, next one, the G17 magazine from WE, metal as well. This is a really old and beat up magazine, as you can tell. One of the reasons actually I didn't like the metal one is because, as you can tell, it kind of flakes off and bubbles over use. Whereas I like the plastic ones better because they don't, you can use them for a while, and obviously they're not going to chip in terms of paint. Obviously a lot more delicate, but they're not going to show that same wear and tear with the paint. So it just looks more like a real Glock mag than it does with this one. Obviously it's a cosmetic issue, but that's just something that is more of an advantage. Anyway, let's get back to this one. So I'm expecting no difference between this magazine here and the WEG19 magazine. So we should probably be around, I think about 230 it was, and then it's probably going to end at 220 again. So let's see if that's the case. All right. Oh, that was kind of weird. 187. This is the same magazine that was kind of, old and had some problems with it before. So hopefully that first shot had a bunch of gas that just flew out. So hopefully that was just a fluke. But there was some problems with this mags earlier. Yeah, every time I'm firing, there's all this. Let's try it. 187. I've been reading 187 3 times in a row. 158. 200. 188. 188. 109. 188, or sorry, 183. 182. 184. 176. Didn't even register. I think we're out of ammo. Yeah, there's something fishy about this magazine. I don't know what's going on. This one performed pretty poorly, and again, it could be one of the older ones. I did a Glock review between the G26 and the KSC versus the Marui, and I had some issues with this one too when I was running it. I'm not really sure. I can't really hear anything. I'll have to investigate this a little bit more and take a look at that. But there was some problems with this one. So we'll take a look, maybe more importantly, we'll take a look at the decline. But this might be an outlier because it might be a faulty magazine. Let's go into the VFC or the Stark Arm mags right here. And this is going to be very interesting because I think what's going to happen is a lot of folks are going to be interested in this one because the new Umarex Glocks that are coming out, they're going to be using this magazine, and we're going to be wondering, well, are they going to be fitting with other guns? Are they going to work? So let's take a look at how they fit with the older guns. So say if you bought the new ones and you wanted to use this magazine, can you use it in the Marui? What we found out in our other videos was that you can use this or the VFC mags in the Marui, but you can't use the Marui in the VFC ones. Kind of weird, huh? But let's see how it performs. There were some efficiency issues though. But let's take a look if that was really the case with the Marui, since there are subtle differences between or among all of them actually. So let's see. Again, that's your 17 round metal G17 Stark Arms VFC, what have you, magazine. All right. I'm kind of curious to see. I think what happens is going to start the same rate, but it's going to start tapering off FPS a lot faster. But let's take a look here. 220, 218, maybe more comparable to the other ones. 216, 215, feels really weak. 212, 212. It hit the edge, so that was 139. I don't think it's right. 212, 209, 210, 208, 208, 206, 205. That's it. 205. But at least it locks back. Now, again, it's went from what, 220 to 205. Doesn't sound like a huge difference between the VFC one or the Stark Arm Glock Mag and the standard stock Marui one that comes with it. At least for this model right here. So that's a good sign. Of course, I'm just ballparking. I haven't looked at the numbers yet. I'll take a look at that in a little bit to see where they land. But I guess for this one, it's not a big deal. It seems to work okay. Now that's going to be a different story, though. I'll run this test with in a different video of the G17 to show you what I'm talking about in the. But that has some issues. But I'm a little surprised, but this one doesn't have any problems, which is great. So now let's try the last one, the plastic G17 magazine. What we found from the last video is that initially it starts off at the same FPS, the same storage capacity in terms of the gas reservoir. It shoots pretty much the same. The only difference though is because this thing is plastic, although you won't feel it being very cold like the metal ones when you fire, because it's very much insulated. What happens is when you fire, the inside gets very cold, and as it gets colder, in a metal magazine, there's a lot more, I guess, heat transfer. So a lot of the heat from the outside transfers into the magazine and warms the gas, making the gas slightly a little bit warmer. That's why you'll be able to feel the cold. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the theory how it was explained to me. So because you feel it's cold, the heat's actually being transferred into the gas, and it actually keeps the gas a little bit warmer longer. That's why you can shoot these a lot more often, and they'll retain their FPS at a higher rate, and it'll drop a lot slower. Compare that to this one right here. Yes, you won't feel it being very cold, but the problem with that is because the heat that that normally gets transferred into the gun or into the magazine that warms the gas doesn't really happen because it's so well insulated. Because of that, the gases continue to get colder and colder and colder. And without that extra heat transfer warming at the gas to some extent, it's going to drop, the FPS is going to drop a lot more. So I'm anticipating that this should drop, no exception, it should drop a little bit more significantly compared to the rest of these right here. So let's find out if that's the case. Alrighty. Alright, starts out just like everyone else, right? 231, or at least the WE ones. 231, 233, 231, 227, 228, 223, 223 again, 221, 221, 219, 219, 155 for some reason, that might be a mistake. 215, 213. Wow, I'm looking like these results aren't applying to the Marui Glock here. That looks kind of silly on my part, huh? Well, all right. Well, it is what it is. That's why it's difficult for the results of one test to be fully applicable to every other airsoft gun out there. because obviously, like we saw here, doesn't look like these really are following the same trend as when I'm using these mags in the G17, for example, from WE. So let's crunch the numbers a little bit and let's get to more definitive answers here, because from these results, the only thing that we really found interesting was that the WE mags hold up better than the stock Marui mags, which has been reported in the airsoft forums out there, and so that's something we might be able to confirm. But let's take a look at the numbers. So now that we have all our data points put into an Excel table, as we usually do for these types of experiments, we can really get an understanding of the magnitude at which the FPS changes and how these different magazines perform. So basically all the magazines except for the plastic mags, all the metal mags essentially, whether it's the Marui, the G19 or the faulty G17 mag, VFC, Marui, whatever, they've all pretty much declined at a similar rate in terms of FPS drop as we fire. There are some variations, so it does look like the Marui dropped at 1.2, 1.24 every time we shoot. It goes down by a little bit. But again, it could be part of it because I'm not shooting. In some videos I'm shooting and I'm talking a little bit, then I go back to shooting. I'm not consistently shooting it at every 1 or so seconds like I want it to. But for the most part, I think they're fairly comparable. What does stand out though, of course, is the plastic magazine compared to the metal mag. And like we explained earlier, this is not really surprising. It's more of expected, and it fits to the pattern that what we've been suspecting, where the insulation makes a much lower, or sorry, a much faster drop in FPS. So it's just less gas efficient compared to the other ones because of the whole warming and cooling effect of those. Now, what was surprising though is if we take a look at the VFC G17 magazine, because in my experience, I've fired in my other Glocks. When I fired the G17 magazine, I do notice that when I use the VFC ones, they drop a lot faster. They have the same drop as what I've seen with the plastic magazine. We didn't see that here, which is kind of interesting. I wonder if it's because maybe we're not shooting at maybe the seal is better compared to my my WeTech Glocks, and maybe I'm not having the same problem. Um, so maybe they're slightly different, or maybe because the FPS isn't as high as the WE Tech magazines or the WE Glocks, so that means it won't shoot as you won't lose as much gas. But I don't think that second theory is not really true, because we're seeing the same drop in FPS with a plastic mag. So I don't really think that's true. I think maybe it's just that the Marui has a better fit compared to um, compared to the WE. That's my theory. Um, what we can see in the next slide, though, is that this slide, we'll notice that there's even though the rate of decline seems fairly comparable among the metal magazines, it does seem that they're not completely the same in terms of what their starting FPS is. So you notice that the G17 mag, the lime green one, the one that's metal, okay, that one's an outlier. There's something wrong with that magazine, so let's ignore that one. But if you look at the WE mags, right, the WE G19 or G17, they start out significantly higher than the Marui or the VFC magazine. Now, obviously the plastic one sucks, so I mean, not sucks, but it's just not as gas efficient, so it drops out so much quicker. But still ends up still higher than the Marui, though, at least in the short term. But the metal G19 mag, I think it really paints a really strong picture that the metal WE mags are just more gas efficient, and they shoot at a higher FPS compared to the stock Marui mags. VFC, although it doesn't drop as quickly, is kind of more comparable to the Marui. So that's kind of an interesting takeaway from this test. Again, I think the takeaway though is just these mags aren't all the same. They're all slightly different, and some guns, they work better than others, and they perform differently depending on which make and model that it really goes into. So it's a pretty complicated picture, but um, we can safe say that the WE mags are better. And then the pattern here is, the numbers don't lie. The plastic mags just don't hold up too well. So keep in mind, we only fired about 14 shots in this, and if we were to continue shooting, I would imagine the plastic mag would have even a higher rate of FPS decline. So that's just something to take a look at. I thought that was kind of interesting. Next time we'll take a look at more of the VFC mag and comparing that to the WE mag, but in a WE Glock, because that is when we'll actually see some significant differences in terms of FPS drop and gas efficiency. All right, as always, leave some comments and suggestions below. I think a lot of folks have left some really, really good ideas, and I'm working on some of those videos. Please subscribe and like our videos if we're doing a good job to help support our channel. All right, everyone, take it easy.